We're rolling.
Cool. Well, thank you. It's great to be here, and let's make this interactive. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I've heard about this event for years. Well, it all started in Ohio. I was born a city called Elyria, which is kind of right where that hole is in the middle. I think that Ferris wheel is Cedar Point in Sandusky. And when I grew up, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire many times, actually. We couldn't go to the class trip. But I think a lot of the things that I really enjoyed growing up in Ohio, but I also couldn't wait to leave. Like, it's one of those things. I started and went to school at Ohio State, and this is where the journey began. I'm not a big football player, probably because my sister went to University of Michigan. It was a big football state, but again, it's kind of, I relish those Saturdays when everyone was at the football stadium and you could walk around town and have a great time. And in 1980, my husband Joe, and I think we'll be married like 43 years this year, a long time, but we decided, well, we're going to leave Ohio, and we probably need to get married to do that, because that's what you did back then. And we headed to California. I had a business degree, majored in marketing. Joe was a double major, CS, electrical engineering. He had job offers all over the country, and at that time it was also a recession. So it was kind of an interesting time, but we decided Corvallis, Oregon with Hewlett-Packard was either between, I think, IBM in Burlington, Vermont, HP, Corvallis, Oregon, and there were a whole host of other places like TI, Harris Semiconductor, and that wanted him, but it was all government work. They wouldn't tell you what we were doing, and at that time it's like, no way. So we headed west. We were in Oregon for about, 2 years. Those things that you do, like when you're 23 or 4, is like, gosh, I can't forget interviewing, right? So, when the HP recruiter came, it's like, I'm gonna go there, and Joe went and interviewed, and he got a job in California at the microwave semiconductor plant, and so we moved to the Bay Area. And that led me to my first career was in publishing early on, and I was a college textbook rep for Addison Wesley Benjamin Cummings. And it was kind of fun because you go to campus, you talk to professors, at that time everyone in publishing, you had to start in sales, and then you figured out if you're going to go into sales or if you're going to go into editorial. And it turned out that I kind of fell in love with technology in Lotus 123. We had done a kind of a project with them and had taken it to school, and that led me to my next job, which was at a company called Power Up Software. Power Up Software was run by Ed Lowing. It was a derivative of Software Publishing Corporation, if you guys remember that. Software Publishing Corporation had one of the first presentation packages called Hardware Graphics. And at Power Up, we were selling these things called utilities. So Calendar Creator Plus, Pocket Address Book, QuickBooks, Quick Schedule, which are now all utilities really on our phone. Worked with Egghead Software, was involved with the catalog, and again, I really kind of liked technology and where that led. Which ultimately it led me to Ziff Davis, the Consumer Media Group, back in the early 90s. It's where I met Robin. And worked on, I think I was their director of electronic publishing, working on things like Computer Life, Family PC, which was Robin's publication, and Computer Gaming World. And I really started focusing on community. And we did, online community at that time was not very interesting. It was like with AOL, Prodigy, Yahoo, it was really text-based. We were doing CD-ROMs, which was kind of like a sweat house. We were printing like 600, 700,000, and it would be late at night, the UPS driver, we were begging him, please wait, because we knew when we shipped it out, it better work. So we did PC versions for Computer Gaming World, we did Apple versions for Family PC and Computer Life, and from that I kept saying, gosh, if we can only write once, run anywhere, and that led me to events. So Ziff Davis at that time had an events group. They mostly were known for Seabold, which is another desktop publishing, Networld plus Interop. And I came on to run something called Java 1, which I had no clue, really, what I was doing, other than I'd spent a lot of time, with the Consumer Media Group, with Colossal Pictures, who we worked with them. I think they had done, someone in here maybe are working on different Broderbund products, but not Broderbund, okay, so they did. So this was the group, I think I had the black team, and they did Where's Ruff's Bone.
Yeah, that was for me.
Oh, really? Okay, so that was like Stuart Cudlitz and Lely Cunningham, and anyway, they taught me a lot about community, and so when I came to the events side, after about 3 or 4 weeks being on Java 1, I got called into Bob Priestek, who was operations at the time, and he's like, "Who are you? Because my people are complaining about you." You know, and he goes, "What's your story?" So I said, "Well, I've spent a lot of time on community. I'm married to an engineer. Engineers don't like convention centers, but they do like music, they like games, they like things that bring people together, and we need to like look at it that way." I mean, I hate pipe and drape, and it's kind of funny because now I'm in the event industry, but we really, with Java 1, we created pods, so everyone had a standard look and feel. It was a level playing ground. We brought music. I mean, I had a small budget, but brought acoustic musicians into the lobbies of these beautiful buildings playing music. And anyway, it turned out overnight. Bill Losey was running the group at the time, said my goal was 3,000 paid attendees, and we hit it. And he's like, "There's no way you're going to do it, first time event," and we did. So before I knew it, I ended up running an agency for developer conferences. So we had Netscape, Oracle, Sun, Microsoft, separate teams, separate buildings. I mean, it was crazy. And so from, gosh, it was like 96, I think was the first Java 1, to like the early 2000s, we were just running all over the world. I mean, with Oracle we did, when Microsoft had to go dark, when the Department of Justice came and shut them down, Oracle came in and said, and Oracle was smart, like it was Jeremy Burton and Renee Bondinet and even Mark Benioff was there. They were like, "We're going to go after and we're going to get developers from around the world, and we're going to use events," and they got it. I think year 2, we did 23 cities in 25 weeks around the world, 3-day developer conferences. It was crazy. But at that time, you know, at the airports, we would cruise in 20 minutes before. There was no security. We knew what we were doing, and we did it. Through that, actually also again, Bob Priestek with Web 2.0, with Siebold, it was actually Dale Doherty and Craig Klein had come up with this concept of Web 2.0. And they talked to me about it, and I'm like, yeah, I think this makes sense, because where things were going with the browser, we really were going to have like this new environment. Dale couldn't sell it to Tim. I took it to Bob. The next thing we knew about it, we did a joint venture and launched that. Took a little time, and then in 2005, I found myself being able to design 2 major events. One was for Dwell magazine, Dwell and Design, because there wasn't really a design event in the US. And the other one was for Make, you know, like what would you do for the Make audience, and that was Maker Faire. So it was a crazy year. 2006, we launched both of those events. They were both successful, and I had to make a decision. Which way did I go? And I ended up feeling there was something really special about Maker Faire, and again, we got to design it. I loved it. It was at a fairgrounds, and I think this goes to my Ohio roots. Like, there's something just magical about a fair. I felt we could actually affect people's lives way more so than the design industry. And quite frankly, even some of the Dwell editors, I don't know, you know, some of them couldn't afford the things they were writing about. There wasn't that passion that I really felt in the maker world. So 2005 started a journey for me. Now, what was interesting at O'Reilly, like a lot of things, O'Reilly's a big open source company. And I had to relearn everything because Zip was very closed, proprietary. We own it, you know, it's our name. But O'Reilly, I had to start thinking differently, like, what is this open source thing? Like, how does, you know, really? Like, you put it out there and, you know, everyone can touch it. And that was a big epiphany for me. It was a stretch originally, because even with the blog, Phil Terone, who was doing our Make blog, it's like, why are we pointing to every other place? Like, it's as if we would have never pointed to other people's websites. But once I got it, I really got it, and I think that that's the heart of kind of everything I do even now. Like, there really is a big motivator by getting the community involved, and communities can work together. I've seen it, and you know, this was our phrase there: if you can't open it, you don't own it. And I think that that's kind of stayed with me. So, like any good movement, you know, we had a manifesto, or this was our Bill of Rights, and it came again, and this really, I have to say, it was a lot of the O'Reilly passion, but, you know, just having like a manifesto that the community could all agree on. We weren't political, we weren't religious, but we all felt that there were these certain fundamental values, and we actually could march forward with it.
And how long it took you to get that document?
To get what?
That document that you're...
Oh, that one, that one was made by Mr. Jalopy, actually. He is in Southern California, and this is kind of another thing that hit home for me. He would ride around and say, like, when I grew up, we had garages, and there was usually a workbench, and if something was broken, it usually went on the workbench, and you would either work on it or your parents would work on it. But now he was like riding around and saying, gosh, everyone's garages are filled with stuff. So this was really kind of coming from that like, again, what's happening with our world, and this is where there's this wonderful thing that's going on with the maker community, which I have to say, we weren't sure in the beginning, was this a Bay Area creative class issue, or was this a world issue? Like, we really didn't know. I mean, when we did our first Maker Faire, we had about 23,000 people over 2 days, and we're like, gosh, I think that's good. We had no clue. But this came from the community, and I think, again, I think it's important. It's kind of interesting. So with Maker Faire, gosh, probably the best job I've ever had in my life, going out and finding, I mean, really, it's like political organizing. Like, you go and you find the head of the Lego users group, you find the Bob and Lace Makers Guild, you find the rocket maker, you find the robot group. And really you just sort of activate them, and they're doing this, people are doing amazing things all over the world. They're either just doing it by themselves or in a small group. And what Maker Faire did is it really just like brought it to the world, and to say, we just gave really, it was like an empty canvas, and we would bring in these groups and say, here you go. And it was pretty magical. Again, the Bay Area, we had a lot of eye candy. This is El Popo. This is by a gentleman, Dwayne Flatmo, who's up in Arcadia area, and what's not to love about the flaming octopus, that all of that is made out of recycled materials. So here's the growth of the Maker Faire while I was there. The flagship fairs were the fairs that we owned. We, during, 2009, I think I was talking to I think John about it earlier, we, the first year was just Bay Area, and then a group from Austin came and said, you really should, think about us. And so 2006 and 2007, it's Bay Area and Austin, or 2007 and 2008, and then the recession hit, and it just flattened. It was hard to get sponsors of Maker Faire because they didn't quite understand what to do. Although the first year, and this was sort of an interesting discussion at O'Reilly, our first big supporter was Microsoft. And O'Reilly was kind of, well, we're a Unix, we're not Microsoft world. But Microsoft got it, and what they did is they took over a building and they called it Microsoft Makers, and they stepped back. So there was the Dance Dance Revolution thing, there were the robotic bartenders, and Microsoft, again, I have to say, over the years, they are kind of a smart company in how they approach the audience, and they really helped us that first year. But in 2009, we stepped back. We went to the Kauffman Foundation and got a $25,000 grant to write a playbook for our license program. Because everyone, once people saw Maker Faire, they wanted it. And what we wanted to do was just make sure that it didn't go to like a heavily commercial, owner or licensee. And the playbook is really something that kind of helped give people guidelines. It helped, help them figure out how they were going to form a community or how they were going to form a group to put it together. And again, not a lot of dollars, but it really, you can see the featured fairs, so that middle, like the blues were really all part of that $25,000. We also, in 2009, worked with, signed up 2 partners. One was the Henry Ford, where we did a joint venture, and the other one was with the New York Hall of Science, where we did a partnership. After 2 years, and the Henry Ford, actually they did a great job, but we found that like our cultures were very different. The Henry Ford would want linen tablecloths, and we're like, tablecloths are going to be soldering, you don't need that. Don't mark up the bamboo floors. And the New York Hall of Science was like touch, feel, explore, push it forward. So after 2 years with the Henry Ford, and they still continued and were a licensee, they carried it forward. And I do think that at that time too, the Bay Area, Detroit, because there were a lot of folks that left the Bay Area and moved to Detroit, cheap real estate and whatnot, and then New York, the interesting times. After that, something really special happened in 2014. We had a White House Maker Faire. That was thanks to the Obama administration and the Office of Science and Technology programs. Tom Khalil, Kumar, Stephanie Santoso really, again, opened up the White House, and we had 200 makers there. And it was fabulous. We even had Obama. Here we have, this is Lindsay, the gentleman with his like 16-foot giraffe, Russell. We got it on the White House lawn, and Obama has this wonderful characteristic that Secret Service will say, "Don't do this," and then he's like, "I'm doing it," right? And so we actually were able to get this here, and and it was magical. And what I didn't realize at the time is that how much this would mean for the international audience. And even when you go back and look at this peak, over the by the end of 2018, we were doing, or 2017, we were in 48 countries with 221 Maker Faires. We didn't produce them, but we actually gave, again, a platform, a playbook, license for these countries to do it. And then here's just, to just take a moment to look at, the first issue of Make was launched in January 2005, and this takes us through 2015, and a lot had happened. If you remember, like Kickstarter, great way to start funding. Etsy, marketplace, that really kind of democratized like how you go out and get goods. Square came out of tech shop. We had tech shops, we had some highs and lows. MakerBot, another interesting part of the story, and even interesting in the sense that when Bree sold it, I think it was Stratasys. What went with it was Thingiverse, which was big controversy, because Thingiverse was the library that people uploaded their patterns to. It was supposed to stay open source, and all of a sudden it didn't. So we started seeing some fragmentation a little bit in the maker world, and then Arduino and whatnot. But again, when you look back, a lot happened in that 10-year period. I decided, again, aging parent, time to go. Maybe I hadn't looked up since 2005, so in 2018, decided to take a little bit of time, and we also started getting the fires in Northern California, so got a little bit involved with some of the things that were happening there. But then Bob Priestek, the same guy that called me into his office, the same guy that we did a joint venture with O'Reilly, said, "Sherry, can you be our innovator in residence at Freeman?" And Freeman, if you don't know, Freeman's a 96-year-old company. It's privately held. It made it through the recession, which is just amazing because they went from 7,000 employees down to less than 1,000, $2.4 billion in revenue down to $250 million. Very caring for their employees, the people that were furloughed. They gave them a monthly stipend, paid their insurance for a year. And there's kind of wonderful things that I think that company kind of reminds me a little bit of Ziff too. I feel fortunate to be involved here. And so Bob said, "Come and be our innovator in residence. We have a lot of silos. You build community. I need to get people talking. I don't know how to do it." And so we did that. Freeman, again, they do events. They do everything from events. From logistics to shipping to drayage to strategy to audio-visual, you name it. But while I was there, I launched something called Inside Live, which was, again, this was a page I took out of my O'Reilly playbook. When the pandemic hit, it's like the best thing that you can do is get everybody talking and sharing. And so how do we spread the knowledge of innovators and what are some of our best customers doing? So we did that. And then started something called Live Team, which was really, how do we start talking to people that are out there, like how do we bring this community together? And there were several phases of Live Team where it started that some folks that were furloughed didn't know how to even do a Zoom call. It was really kind of interesting to see. There, I actually came on in May, so I guess about a year ago, to head up community, and I report directly to the CEO, which is interesting, so I don't have to go through HR. I took their leadership conference, and last year I turned it into Camp Buck, a nod to Buck Freeman. It was our 95th anniversary. Buck started the company and turned it into summer camp. Realizing that every bone in my body says, what happens in corporate America? Like, why do these people, why do the leaders of this company, and this was about 200 people, why do they want to go to a ballroom and sit and watch presentations and, come on, we know better than this. And so We made it a summer camp, you know, kind of focused on food. We built in sustainability. Had a meatless lunch one day, and I'll tell you, everyone was like, wait, what? Where's the meat? You can't do this, Sherry. And it's like, as soon as someone tells me I can't do it, I'm a bit of a disruptor, and it's like, well, we're going to do it. And it was the best thing to just get people to even talk about it at lunch, because again, it's those kind of moments that matter. T-shirts, we did silk screening. Like, you know, these guys wear $1,000 tennis shoes. They're not wearing a $20 shirt. They're leaving it in the hotel room. But let's show them, let's get them, bring a shirt that you want, and silk screen it, you know. And so again, kind of getting hands-on with that. So what I'm doing now, and then I'll switch to Maker Music Festival, is I focus on community, building it inside the company, outside and inside out. I'm trying to bring new thinkers in. Actually, I've been able to get Robin to meet Bob and kind of understand where we're going. Anyway, talent, I feel like there's a whole next-gen talent. Like, we need to get young people into the events industry. I have to say, it's a fantastic industry. If you have the stomach for it, you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between, but I have to believe for young folks, gosh, I've seen people, you get to travel, you get, you know, what I love about events is there's a start, and there's an end. And so, you know, the show must go on, and so it's great. And then also focusing on sustainability. We lost a lot during COVID. You know, convention centers let go of their sustainability managers, and now like the head of security is running it. It's like, come on. So we're trying to bring green teams back because events are incredibly wasteful. But through all that, while I was doing that, worked on several passion projects because I seem to do best when I have multiple things going on. And the first thing that we did, well, and this is so Decameron Row, we'll talk a little bit about. We worked with UC Irvine, the Institute and Museum of California Art, to create, again, like I mentioned to someone too, a lot of this reminds me of the interactive days at ZIF. Like, these were what we were doing with CDs, and then Maker Music Festival. But Decameron Row, if you haven't, this was an idea between 5 of us. Itamar Kabovi, who he headed up Pilobolus, which is a dance group in New York. Stephanie Sobel, who's an English instructor at Gettysburg University and also is an architecture and art editor at the LA Review of Books. And Juan Diaz-Bocres, who is an architect and he did the graphic design. And then I talked my husband into doing the back end. And actually, I still remember Robin one day, you guys had come to our house because we were doing it, you know, back in the day. So kind of just like Carrie, Joe's always been there, like it or not, for the things that I do. But if you know the Decameron, when COVID hit, we were like, well, what is our Decameron? And Decameron is Giovanni Boccaccio, I think the 14th century. 10 friends fled to the hills of Florence for 10 days and told stories to each other. And so we're like, hey, we have kind of a cool group of people. Let's have them each document their time during lockdown and give us a 1-minute video just on a phone. It turned out to be fabulous. Oops, sorry, wrong way. Our Decameron Row, it's a series of 8 buildings. The thin building with with color on there, we decided let's get kids too. So we got, I think, kids between 12 and 18 to give their time during lockdown. This is a little piece that actually the New York Times did, kind of like Windows on a Quarantine World, and it really is like an advent calendar. And if you get a chance, it's one of those things like either in the morning or at night. Well, if you click on any one of those windows, basically it'll pop up and it'll display folks' lockdown videos, which, by the way, changed dramatically after the killing of George Floyd. Because we started this, we came up with the concept in March. We started like putting it out to our community. Some people got it in, and in June things really like changed. So originally people were walking in the woods and little things, and then it got a little bit political, which is kind of interesting and good. And if you go there, just to sort of see, you can actually blow it up. But basically it'll pop up a video, and these are the 100 creators, which are everyone from film to design to makers. It's an interesting group of people, and it's kind of just a fun thing to do. We then worked with we came together as this group and said, well gosh, we're just getting started, we can do more. We had worked with the folks again at UC Irvine and starting to take some of these impressionist landscape paintings and created a frame, and again, you can go here. and I can get you the presentation too and click on it, but did that for them. During that period, Joe, who's my husband, is saying to the art world, like to the art team, like with Decameron Row, like we can go into the rooms, like we don't just have to display, you know, like come on, like this is designing and building for the web. And so but the artists wanted, you know, no, they just wanted the screen to show, and you know, it was very theatrical. So Joe came to me in January 2021 and said I want to do Maker Music Festival, and we had done one in 2018 in Sebastopol, our local makerspace. It was small, maybe I think we had like 15 makers, but they had come to me and said they wanted to do a fundraiser, they wanted to do a Maker Faire, and I go, no you don't. Pick one area of making and then let's just highlight it, because Maker Faire is just this big beast and it's crazy. So we did a live Maker Music Festival, and I don't know, I know there's some musicians in the room, but you might know Bart Hopkin, who actually has done like it's kind of like the OG of like experimental instrument making. And it turns out that there's way more music makers than I ever thought of around the world. And anyway, this has turned into an interesting project, which I'll talk about. The interface, it's Maker Music Festival, but it's here, it lives online all year. Like we're not taking it down, we're adding buildings to the campus. And we also have, if you don't want to do in the building mode for a mobile device, if you hold your device in regular mode, you can go in and scroll and figure out where you want to go. We just launched, this is our 3rd year, so we opened it in, again, when you look back and it's like, I'm not sure how we even did this, but year 1 we had, gosh, 300 makers in their projects and 19 buildings. And, you know, I remember asking Joe, how many buildings are we going to have? Because I wanted to write the press release. It's like, I don't know. Like, you know, he was building it as we went along. But each building is named after a pioneer of music. So this one's named after Moog. You can click on it and it'll take you and you can learn about it. The flags on the side, we actually have worked with we've curated a lot of buildings, which is sort of interesting. So the folks at Karma at Stanford have a building. Dorkbot, if you know Dorkbot, they have a building. Makey Makey, many of you may know Makey Makey. Acoustic, which is a group in London. Anyway, it was a great way to fill buildings. And this year we actually have University of Michigan, a woman in there that heads their music department, actually has her students in there too. We've kind of come to the conclusion that we have so much content in here now. We have 35 buildings, we have over 440 projects, and we started chatting with Anne-Marie Thomas. I don't know if any of you know her. She is a teacher or a professor at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis. Like she's in engineering, she's a mechanical engineer, she's in the business department, and she also started something called the Playful Learning Lab. It's a place where her students, and I think most of them are undergrads, work to kind of bring more play into the world. And she has done, I don't know if any of you know OK Go's Sandbox. So the band OK Go, Anne-Marie met Damien at a conference getting coffee and they decided they would collaborate. So OK Go Sandbox is actually a tool for teachers, resources to take and deconstruct the OK Go videos so kids can understand what's going on. And I keep thinking like we need an OK Go Sandbox Pro, because this is the type of thinking I truly believe that I'm trying to even infuse in corporate America. Like again, I think play and purposeful play is so missing that we have a major opportunity here. But through that, there are 9 field trips that we've added this year. So we're going to focus on how do we get this out to the world, because you know we can keep adding more buildings, but really what we need to do is get resources to music educators to get this into the classroom. So I can pass some of these around. These are field trips that the students have done. This is Anne-Marie Thomas's group, and one's on stringed instruments, percussive instruments, projects from East Asia. Goes on and on, but there's 4 or 5, and again, you can take them into the classroom. They put in like, you know, vocabulary and things to think about and questions for the kids, which we learned from some of our folks in Asia. And again, being part of Maker Faire, I feel like I'm so fortunate because I have this global community of makers that I can tap into. But we found that during COVID, what would happen is that a group from our Shenzhen Maker Faire team, and they worked with kids, they would take the kids and their families would come on Zoom trips, and the kids would get so into the videos that they started asking questions like, well, what's going on? And, and really the folks that were driving it like had no clue. So this is kind of the first part of what we're trying to do here. This year we also worked with, do any of you know Makey Makey as a tool?
Yeah.
So we worked with, again, this group, and we did a conversation with folks from Conductive Music in the UK, Opera on Tap, which is a group in Brooklyn that started to again bringing opera and singing to underserved communities, and then the Playful Learning Lab. This bit.ly will take you to our conversation, but the biggest thing for me, and this just happened 2 weeks ago on May 20th, is to find out that kids aren't even taught how to sing in school anymore. And that's really affecting what's happening even in their music, because they probably can sing along to Taylor Swift or do anything like that, but they don't, like when I grew up, you were taught how to, you had music, and you went to church and you sang and you did that, and a lot of that's just gone. And so that was another big epiphany, like, wow, okay, think about that. But anyway, the interface of Maker Music Festival, just that basically, and again, this was designed from all these years at Maker Faire. There's a video, there's an about, there's a fact, there's a bio, and there's a connect. So this is a video. This woman is awesome. She does these microcontrollers that look like birds, and she cuts them out, and you can kind of play with the knobs, and they make different sounds and whatnot. Kelly Heaton's her name. But it's really, again, a way to kind of get in and see folks. This is a sampling of the current Maker Music Festival folks, like what you can expect to see, and it's a 3 or 4 minute video. I don't know if I can get this up higher.
Ailleurs, nos manches restèrent dans un tournant. Donc ses amis avec mes amis qui parlaient également.
that's just from this year. There's high tech, low tech, no tech. But I'm amazed at this community that we've gathered from around the world, and it's just great to share it. And I think the one interesting thing too is even for getting kids exposed to music, what's great about this type of like exploring sound, there's not a right way. Like, you know, I remember like piano lessons and all that, it's like, okay, you had to play this music, you had to do it this way. But the whole goal is to get more kids hands-on, exploring sound. And again, I'm very open because I'm not an educator, but what we're trying to do is figure out what can we do again to take this into the community, because it's a pretty wonderful collection. And there's 466 of these in 35 buildings. So again, you can find what's important to you, and that's what the students at Playful Learning Lab did, is that they went through and said, these are the ones that we think that could go into schools.
What's the age group, from what age to what age?
Some of them it depends on the, for these, it's K through 12, but they've got some for elementary school, for middle school, and whatnot. There's one woman, Victoria Shen, who's in San Francisco. She's actually going to be on the cover of Wired this month. She is Gen Z. She does very cool things, and this will she attaches with adhesive pins on her fingernails, and will play records.
Alternative. I just want to. Yeah, I just love to know.
Oh, so yeah. It's it really depends on what you're trying to do, but I have to say, last night if I can move through this, we did something at Center for New Music last night in San Francisco. It was a dedication to this guy, Tom Nunn, who passed away age 76, but has done a lot for the new music community in the Bay Area. He developed something called Sketch, which there are these boxes, and you're kind of like scratching, like you're making things. They've got pickups in them, and again, really kind of interesting. But I don't know. And again, it's not for everyone. Like again, some of the people will say this is noise. This is not music. But at the same way, it's really kind of an exploration, and like really what is music. But yeah, so it can be. These are meant for K through 12, and we'll do more. I mean, we want to. This was just, again, taking what we had and starting to kind of create resources, but there's a whole community out there that's really willing to do more too. Like I was mentioning at our dinner tonight too, South America is just on fire with music makers, and they were not so much, when we were doing Maker Fairs, we didn't have great penetration into South America, and I think that what's happened is that Maker Faire, Music Maker Faire, like all of these things have come together, and we're seeing a lot that's happening. And then just what I like to do, I had grandparents that came from Eastern Europe, and like baking is fun, and making things, and this is my husband Joe. We live in Occidental, which is kind of the north part of here. We've done it all, and yeah.